Okay, Uncle, this is in continuation to our last meeting we had a couple of months ago. And these are some more questions regarding your career and your life in the Air Force thereafter. And first of all, we would like to know what was your life before you joined the Air Force? Had you done flying training in civil, or you were a novice when you joined the Air Force? Had you ever taken off before in an aeroplane?
Well, very first time I went up in the airplane was much earlier. I forget now when it was, but it was in Rajasthansi near Amritsar. And there was a wedding, and the father of the girl was a member of the Lahore Flying Club.
Okay.
And he also wanted Tiger Mus to come there and give joyrides to these people.
Okay, okay. So you took a joyride?
So I took a joyride the very first time in a
Okay, that's nice, Uncle. What was the selection process those days? Did you respond to an ad? And was there an interview by a board that selected you? How did it go?
No, actually, I had just finished my BA.
Okay.
I was very young, when I'm just 19, just getting on. And I did not know what to do. And then there was a question of going back to the sugar factory in Gorakhpur and be there. I didn't want to do that. So I was very fond of horses.
Okay.
So I said, well, I'd go to the cavalry.
I see.
If I ever want to do that. My grandfather said that why cavalry, why not Air Force?
Okay.
Mr Majithia, my grandfather. And normally people stop you from going for Air Force, you see, but anyway. So in any case, you see, my uncle Sujit, who was 8 years older than me, he used to fly civil before the war.
What was he flying, Uncle?
We were flying these, actually they bought a Miles Hawk, small English plastic, I mean this...
Fabric.
Miles Hawk from English. And that was belonging to Maharaj Bhavinder Singh in Patiala.
I see.
So they bought it from him, and then he used to fly around here, there, and everything like that. That is his experience. But I've never been in that aircraft. I've seen it, but I've never been in it.
Okay, Uncle. Now, those days, did you people get your commission the moment you joined, or after you finished like your training, like like it happens today?
Oh, I don't know about that. It's too far.
Like you started getting your salary the day you joined as an officer, or was it after your flying training was over that you got into the uniform and...
No, frankly, I tell you, I'll go back a little further than that, you know. You see, how people were wanting to get good, I mean, from families and everything to join the Air Force. And there was opposite Clark's Hotel in Shimla. There's an office there where Group Captain Bussell, who was the head of the Air Force.
This is Group Captain Bussell in Shimla?
In Shimla.
Okay.
So grandfather knew him, so he rang him up. He said, my grandson wants to go to surgeon. He said, send him to me. So I walked up to his office.
Oh, you were in Shimla at that time?
In Shimla.
Okay, Uncle.
And I walked up there with chaps sitting there, very impressive group captain uniform and all, Royal Air Force. So he said, oh, my boy, okay, I'll got your address and I'll let you know.
I see.
So I got a letter.
From him?
From him or from the head, probably whatever.
Selection board or whatever it was?
To appear for a selection committee in Ambala.
I see.
So give him the date and everything, and then I went to Ambala for that selection. And there was a selection board, was Group Captain Bussell, he was presiding, and Squadron Leader Mukherjee.
I see.
He was there, and one member of the DGCA, I forget his name now, but he was...
Okay.
And they keep on asking questions here, there, and everything else like that.
And you got selected there?
And I got selected by medical.
But they told you immediately that you were selected, or you had to wait for a call letter or something?
No, I had to wait for... So they said, okay, you go for a medical.
I see.
So I went to the medical, they said okay, and said, we'll let you know. So I got a letter from them that we've been selected But the training is in Karachi.
I see.
So they sent all the railway forms and everything, you know. I do not know what it was.
The requirements you had to fulfill.
So I went I was prepared to go to Karachi, and I told my grandfather that I'm going to Karachi. In Karachi, there was this Miranda's people who were agency of Buicks and Chevrolet cars in.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So he had a house there. He Sindhi. They came.
Who had a house there, uncle?
He's owner of this agency of the.
Okay, okay.
So he said, "Oh, we're going to stay in my house and everything." Was fine. So grandfather said, "All right, go." So I went by train to Karachi and went to the house, and they met me and everything. One room was given to me, and an old Ford car.
Okay.
I mean, not collapsible, but canvas hood and everything. He said, "You can use this car to go there." So from there, I went to the airport, and then I met my first instructor called Gokte.
What's your name, uncle?
Gokte.
Gotke.
Gokte.
Gotke.
Maharashtrian.
1 second, uncle. Let me ask you another question. Now, when you got selected, uncle, do you remember the other course-mates of yours as the names listed below, like it seems Ranjan Dutt, M.S. Puji, Shivdev Singh, H.C. Diwan, Y.V. Malse, Minu Engineer, K.L. Bhatia, who apparently died as a group captain, and he was very famous to fly the Indian troops into Srinagar during 47-48 war. Do you remember all these people?
Yeah, very well, very well. I think we are hopping now. We're going from my training into this other thing, which is there's a gap, you know.
You were all together in Karachi, uncle?
No, I was alone.
Okay, and where are these?
I do not know.
You don't remember where they were trained?
I do not know where they were trained. I only met them when I was selected, when I came down to report to in Lahore, Walton.
After your training, you all got together in
Only one.
Walton, Lahore.
First training was in Karachi.
Basic training, what was the aeroplane, uncle, you trained on?
Tiger Moth.
Tiger Moth. And then you came to Walton, and there you were trained on?
Then eventually we came back to Lahore, and we gained Tiger Moth. I had a sergeant pilot, and you know, it's British never commissioned their pilots. You know, they had a sergeant pilot.
Sergeant pilots.
And also the same thing I will tell you. Now I can say, because you can get a DFC as a pilot officer, a squadron leader, and everything else.
But as a sergeant pilot, you could not get it?
No, you can get it, but not DFC, called DFM.
DFM, Distinguished Flying Medal. Am I right?
Yeah.
DFM, okay.
And also that in the Air Force Cross, you don't get Air Force Cross.
Yeah, you got what?
Air Force Medal.
AFM.
Yeah.
Air Force Medal, okay.
If you're a sergeant. But it was very unfavorable. My instructor was a sergeant.
Now, uncle, this is regarding, so you remember all these people, even Mr. What was his name? K.L. Bhatia?
Well, actually very well. He was actually
How did he die, uncle?
No, he was actually airman.
Achha, he was an airman.
Airman. Then promoted, came there for selection and everything.
And how did he die? He took part in the 47-48 operations?
He may have, yeah, but he used to fly. I remember him flying Hudsons one time.
Okay.
Very peculiar aircraft with the wings, the tail at the back, you know, two tails.
Okay, okay.
So Hudson, I do not know. I used to know the other family who used to come to Nainital.
Who used to come to Nainital?
Bhatia's family.
Okay, he used to come. You met him? No, you never met him. He died in 47-48. No, he took part in 47-48. Died, they have not. You don't remember when he died?
No, I don't remember when he died, but he was definitely, he was in the Air Force as an airman. Hawaii spy, I would call it at that time, no? Other people I remember very well.
Uncle, your instructors, you said, was Sergeant Hart.
Sergeant
Was
Hart.
there Flight Lieutenant Fogley also?
Probably, yeah.
He was also
Fogley was the chief flying
chief flying instructor. Your personal instructor was Sergeant Hart.
Sergeant Hart.
And how long did you stay in touch with him after finishing your training, like when you were in squadron service? And
No,
I stayed around, or he went back?
I do not know.
You don't remember.
Because the reason is that there are so many things happened, because there are two, three instructors, because he was the main instructor. Then you had to pass out a, test and everything else by another instructor,
Okay.
him. And he was very keen to show you how to force land without an engine,
Okay.
So many times you used to start our engine and you land somewhere.
Land as a... And then you used to actually land?
No,
Or just start there, touch and go.
Touch and go.
And then start there.
So,
And Uncle, do you remember Flight Lieutenant Tate Howell? Tate Howell, S.L. Simpson and F.L. Bonner. In 1940, they moved to Hawker Hart and the Westland Wapiti instructors, Tate, Howell, Simpson, Bonnet.
no, I don't remember them. When my instructor was Sergeant Hart, I didn't have anything much to do with it.
So you finished with Hart, and then after you were on your own.
Can I be wrong?
You had no more instructions after that.
I remember the first solo which I had on the stage going to in Lahore. Suddenly a storm came,
Okay.
and I had to sort of use the throttle of the engine quite a lot to keep the flying speed. Landing, the first landings I had that time.
Okay.
And after that, I got a prize for that. I mean, selected the best ambulance pilot and all.
Commended you. What was the initial flying like? Did you, like the very first time you started flying the Tiger Moth,
Yeah.
was it very exciting? Was it very challenging, I should say? Or was it like easy than you expected?
Well, not really, actually.
New to you.
But funny part was that I didn't like hanging upside down.
Okay.
Or the muck used to come from the
Okay.
thing like that and all. And
But why did you have to hang upside down? You had to do rolls?
well, rolled. And then
Whenever you did a roll, the muck would fall.
you being an instructor yourself, you know how it happens. You got to left rudder up and things like that, And these modern ones, you see, of course, you don't do that. You have to do this with the finger.
Uncle, I would ask a very, what do you call, simple question. You people could open your cockpit those days and still do a roll, or it wasn't allowed to do it with the open cockpit?
In
In the Tiger Moth, I would say.
Tiger Moth is no cockpit.
Oh, it was just open in any case. So when you did a roll, won't the muck also
Yeah,
falling out?
fall out.
Besides falling on you, you could also drain it into the atmosphere.
Why did you fall out?
all fall out.
Something like that.
Do you remember your first trip to Ambala, Uncle? Or Risalpur, for that matter?
No, I remember all the trips like that. First trip that
Like you were trained in Lahore.
Lahore, first initial training I was talking about. After that, we went to
Risalpur.
no,
Ambala. Okay.
Ambala. There was a squadron already. Number 1 squadron was there. Uncle Sreet was there. Mayor Singh was there, and Arjun was there also.
Okay, so you remember your very first trip to Ambala, and you remember meeting these people.
I met.
And Risalpur?
Risalpur was because that was I have already done service.
I see.
I've gone to after I finished it in Lahore.
Uh-huh.
My advanced training were in Hawker Harts and Wapitis and all. But one thing I must tell you about the Wapiti was a very old aircraft, which was the first aircraft which was bought by the Indian Air Force, I'm told, was for 10 pounds.
How much was it going?
Huh?
How much was it bought for?
10 pounds they bought the aircraft from the British, you see.
Oh, 10 pounds. The cost of the aeroplane was 10 pounds.
That was one time. That's what I'm told. I didn't.
Yeah, it must be.
And then, of course, after we flew Wapitis, the only thing was that we were not flying in Wapitis. There was open cockpit.
Hanji.
And for blind flying and everything, we put a hood on. And there was a canvas hood.
Okay, yes. I remember that as late as the 60s and 70s, we had a canvas hood.
and there were some holes in the canvas, you know, you could sort of peep out where you're going. They couldn't take off like that.
Do a little cheating.
But a bit of cheating is always there, you know, for that matter. Anyway, after that, I loved
You loved the Wapiti.
no, it was the machine.
We would like to know, how did you find the Wapiti on the whole? Like, was it a good aeroplane to fly with?
But it was nothing much. It's a very cumbersome.
How much did you fly, Uncle? How many hours did you have on the Wapiti? Approximately.
But in the training, whatever training, I forget about 20.
How many?
I don't remember. I have to see a logbook now.
No, approximately. You must share a rough idea.
Because we had eventually we had Wapitis in the flight where the first posting was there.
Uncle, how much did each sortie normally last? Like average sortie on the Wapiti? 1 hour.
Training?
No, normal day-to-day flying when you did your training flying, or you did your operational training, or
Operational training, but an hour.
An hour or so. Do you remember any particular incident while flying the? Did you fly the Heart also, Uncle?
Yeah. Okay.
Do you any particular incident which you would like to elaborate on in the Wapiti or the Heart, like some sort of an emergency or an exciting phase during a particular sortie?
Not particularly, because the thing is that what I remember about Wapiti, when I first posting, I was posted in the Coastal Command.
Where, Uncle?
Coastal Command in Madras.
Okay.
Number 1 for coastal flight. So that was the flight was formed by mostly people who have been flying locally before, and then given their first training.
Hanji.
And I was Scotland flight lieutenant. Law was the CO.
I see.
And he was a commercial man, commercially posted in Madras and the other. So anyway, so that was how I did Wapiti. We had Wapiti. Then we had. Then I was given that trip to deliver his property in Karachi.
Hanji. Okay.
And the CEO told me that on my 21st birthday, he said, you come back and bring that aircraft, we've got to go back to Karachi, and Karachi to go back to Ambala, pick up a Hawker Heart, then fly it back.
To Madras.
To Madras. So it's very funny because Wapiti is a small aircraft, a big aircraft, but it's not very fast. So I went to Madras to Hyderabad. In Hyderabad to Pune, and spent the night there, then Pune to Bhuj in Bombay, because you see...
Pune to in Bombay?
Bombay.
Bhuj is in Gujarat?
Yeah, I'm called
Juhu, okay.
From Juhu, I from Juhu I went up to via Ahmedabad.
Okay.
Ahmedabad to Bhuj.
Okay.
Landed in Bhuj.
That's a long, very crisscross trip.
We had to go. That's the way. So,
And Uncle,
and Bhuj, from Bhuj we went to Karachi.
Karachi. Yeah,
so I delivered the aircraft, got the chit and everything, I got into the train and went to Ambala.
Ambala, okay.
Then I
picked up the
test flight this Hawker Heart, which I liked very much indeed. And took it, then next day or 2 days after that,
Uncle, Hawker Heart also had an open cockpit, or was it?
Open cockpit.
And what was the navigation like those days? That you went almost all over the Western India.
Well, sometimes you got...
It was basically the compass, your watch, and that's all. There was no other navigation aid.
No navigation.
There was nothing from the ground.
No, sometimes you get an observer.
Oh, there was an observer.
They get an observer, but normally if a gunner is there, so
he was the observer. He used to sit behind. And what was the communication like between him, you and him? Notes. How did it go?
Well, I don't know, exactly thing like that, you hand over thing like that, no. But it's very, very difficult. That trip was amazing that when I'm from coming, I picked up the aircraft from
Hanji.
and then came to Delhi. Then in Delhi and to Nagpur.
Okay, that makes sense, Hanji.
Nagpur, when I stopped, then went to Hyderabad to Madras. I landed there on my birthday.
Okay.
21st
birthday.
July, 21st birthday. Because how I remember it, because on my last birthday, my grandson, Farid, asked me, he said, do you remember any birthday which you liked so much?
Hanji.
I said, yes, certainly. I suddenly thought of my
21st birthday in Madras.
That's how I remember it.
Very nice, very interesting. Uncle, these observers, or tail gunner as you would call him, do you remember any of them by name?
With me, because he was not only he was. Then we had, don't forget, we had Atlanta's 4-engine aircraft in Madras, and he was my observer for a long time in that. So you could
He was the observer.
No,
He used to sit behind. And what was the communication like between him, you and him?
Past messages.
How did it go?
Well, I don't know. You tap things like that, give handovers, things like that, and all. But it's very. Dadi Mehta.
Okay.
And
Engineer.
Dadi Mehta.
Dadi Mehta, okay, uncle.
He's also my boss. He mentioned other names before asking me that Sen and all that. I remember them very well. And all the people in that photograph with khaki uniform, they're straight back, and the blue ones, they were selected to go to UK.
Okay.
As you said, we lost quite a lot of them there.
Lost who, uncle?
We lost some people there, you know, at that time. But that one particular chap standing next to me here, very Manmohan Singh. I remember him very well because he used to fly long before the war broke out. He used to fly.
He was a flyer already, civil flying.
Civil flying. He used to go from India to England and back again. No.
What happened to him down the line when you people joined?
He went to England, when eventually he went from Sunderland's.
Okay.
4-engine aircraft. I didn't know about it, I just heard about that. And he went to Darwin,
Okay.
Australia,
Hanji.
at Sunderland. And not capacity as a pilot or second pilot, I do not know. Then the Japanese bombed and he was killed there.
Oh, he was killed there, in Darwin. Okay, that's interesting. Uncle, in 1941 is when you were in Madras on the coastal flight?
Yeah.
Who all were with you at that time?
Keep on changing. There
You
was
said your CEO was
John Law, Don Law. And
Virk Air Marshal, later on Air Marshal Virk was also...
Virk was there, was part of.
And then there was some Mehta also, you said? Mehta.
Mehta was there, Daddy Mehta.
This coastal flight was these other aeroplane called Lysander's.
No, Atlanta's.
Atlanta, sorry,
For
Atlanta.
the sea. We used to go take off at 4 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 to be on the about 200 miles over the sea to do submarine, anti-submarine searches.
And what weapon did you have against the submarine, uncle?
We had two bombs.
Depth charges? Like a depth charge? It will go in the water and explode?
Well, it was supposed to be, not called depth charge, it's supposed to be a bomb. But it's supposed to, so you can sort of time it, to go back down. And
Then it'll go down and then explode. Do you remember any particular mission where you spotted a submarine or you took action against it?
we didn't, we had spotted one, but then we said it may not be a submarine, maybe
A boat or something.
Big fish, something else. But I remember one ship which sank. Actually, you said, in the evening, I was turning back, and he said good night and everything like that. And suddenly he sent a message, a message, saying that I'm being attacked. So by the time I came back, he was already half sinking.
The ship was sinking, and it had been attacked by somebody.
Submarine. And then I didn't see submarine boat at all. But then I'm from the Navy immediately on the RT.
Morse code.
On the Morse code. I mean, I had a gun.
You did not know Morse code, but the gunner.
No, we knew Morse code.
You could do it?
No, I could do. We had to pass examination there, but we didn't do. I was flying.
Actually.
But he was. We had Morse code. We had crew. A navigator, there's this WT operator, and a gunner, 2 gunners at the back.
All in one?
All in one.
After you finish your training in Madras, which is your first unit? No, training in Ambala, sorry.
Madras.
Madras, yeah. Number 1 squadron? No, number 1 CDF, Coastal Defense Unit.
There are 3.
Coastal Defense Flight.
Of course, there's one, we were number 1. Number 2 was in Calcutta, where was Minu engineer was there that time.
Okay.
And the 3rd was in Karachi.
So they were all along places which are close to the coast.
On the coast.
And they were not known as units. They were flights, coastal defense flights.
Right, and then that's the reason I met Arjun in Karachi there at that time.
Okay.
For that, the only thing is that I know Arjun because he was his bearer. I took over his bearer.
Okay.
And then, of course, he was a chap from Ambala, excellent chap, very good. I stayed with him for 3 years.
Uncle, did you fly the Oryx also?
Yeah, Oryx is the same thing because the only thing.
Same as what?
Heart.
Same thing.
Oryx, they had you could fly them in the night.
Fine.
You could fly them in the night.
I see. Okay.
Because they had a cover on the exhaust, you know.
Okay. And the Atlanta?
Atlanta was 4-engine aircraft, which was used to fly. British Airways to fly. British from London to Singapore and to Africa.
I will. An interesting question would be like one moment you flew the Oryx or the Heart, and next moment you're flying a 4-engine thing.
No, not the next day.
No, but were you given some special training to go onto the 4-engine?
Well,
You had to do a conversion like?
Well, they did the conversion when you're flying as second pilot, you know.
I see.
Second pilot you flew in Atlanta, then you get a command of that.
Okay.
Then you become instructor of that also, the new chaps coming in. This engineer, young, Jumbo engineer also.
Jumbo engineer. Uncle, some of the people who should have been with you were Jumbo engineer, Raja Ram, Aziz Lodi, J.D. Italia, A.M. Murad.
Murad was his name.
A. Mehta.
Daddy Mehta, I don't know the A. Mehta.
Squadron leader D. Law was the CO?
Flight Lieutenant.
Flight Lieutenant Law. D.W. Law. You mentioned that.
But earlier on. Because that is the other people were there. Because all the rest of the people were of the Royal Air Force, you know.
Uncle, do you remember a particular crash where some Patwardhan got killed? He was from one of the royal families.
Patwardhan?
Patwardhan.
Very much so. It's the same. I was supposed to do that flight myself, you know. You were talking about Atlanta crash.
Atlanta crash.
Yeah, I was very much there that day. I was flying. I was supposed to fly that day, but I'm not feeling well. So he took over. So I told the CEO, John Dominic, he's not quite ready for the.
You told the CEO that the boy is not quite ready.
Not quite.
Okay.
So I said, I'll do the flight myself. He said, no, let him go now. You'll get experience.
So
unfortunate.
That's the flight he crashed.
That's his flight. He did the trip, and then came back, and I went to see the landing.
Okay.
At that time, we had grass thing, and we turned into cement, you know, the whole thing up there. And there was heap of cement, of such a line
along the side of the runway.
And he unfortunately, he had my crew also. My crew was with him. But unfortunately, that's the only thing I remember so well, to hit the thing.
He
And
hit
the
one of
aircraft-
those mounds of
he
mud,
hit one
or
of the
cement or
mounds.
whatever it was?
He hit the mount, and then when the aircraft went up like that, and then broke me back, and then suddenly it burst into flames. And bombs also there, they burst up and all.
Okay. Very sad.
But when
This coastal flight was finally disbanded in 1942, Uncle?
no, Royal Air Force took over on Blenheims.
On Blenheims. So they converted to Blenheims. And who was their first CEO?
I don't know.
Air Commodore Meher Singh, if you remember. Uncle?
No, Meher Singh. No, British.
They took over the
They took
company.
over, and we were sent to Salpur for
Okay.
conversion on Hurricanes.
Wasn't one of the flights converted into 6th Squadron, which Meher Singh commanded finally? Which one? Your flight? CDF-1.
One Friday, all these people, like me to engineer, at the same time, we all went to form
6th Squadron.
6th Squadron in the Salpur.
In the Salpur.
And then
And what was this year, Uncle? 1942? No. 42, should be 42.
42, something like that.
42,
42,
yeah.
42. It was when, but unfortunately, it was actually, luckily for that matter, Meher Singh he was doing staff college in Kocha,
Okay.
which is not very far from there.
Haji.
And then actually another chap was supposed to take over, who was also senior to Meher Singh.
Who, Uncle?
Haridarshan Singh, his name, or
Acha.
I forget now. Anyway, he broke his arm,
I see.
so he didn't come. So Meher Singh left that staff of college and came.
And took over the squadron.
First time I met him there, second time.
6th Squadron. So, correctly speaking, Air Commodore Meher Singh, later on Air Commodore Meher Singh, was your first CEO of a squadron.
His first year.
Earlier ones were the flights, flight, coastal defense flight. The CEO was an Englishman. So the first Indian CEO was Air Commodore Meher Singh.
Every time you see everybody.
What was the rank at that time, Uncle? He was squadron leader?
Who?
Meher Singh?
Meher Singh's colleague.
Flight squadron leader.
I remember him when he was in Ambala with a flight lieutenant. And Arjun was a flying officer at that time, earlier on. But this is the time he became squadron leader and took over the squadron.
Uncle, do you remember anything about the gunnery school in Baigarh?
Yeah.
The gunnery school in Baigarh.
No.
You did not do a gunnery course in Baigarh on hurricanes or something?
No, we did not with ourselves, no. We did this conversion, we converted into hurricanes. We did they used to have one wapti used to drag a huge big
Drone. Like a
drone.
It's a
Then you
drone.
quarter attack on
Quarter
it and
attack,
everything.
yes.
And
High quarter, low quarter, medium quarter.
That's right.
You come from the side and then, and at a certain angle you have to break off, otherwise you'll shoot the aeroplane is pulling it.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember those also.
That was a hurricane. But the drone was put by a wapiti.
It seemed, Uncle, were you ever with number 1 gunnery school? No.
No.
What are your experiences, Uncle, with the Hurricane? Like, it was the fastest aeroplane those days. It had a retractable undercarriage, and it had guns, and it had a canopy, which was it pressurized also? No pressurization. How high could you go in it?
But we didn't have to go.
But you had breathing oxygen with you.
No, no.
There was no oxygen mask.
No.
No, Uncle, no oxygen. But otherwise, how did you find converting from a fixed undercarriage aeroplanes, open canopies, and you go on to canopy which closes, undercarriage that's retracted, and the speed difference is, I guess, 2-3 times more. Okay, Uncle, now we'll go back to the Hurricane. You flew the Hurricane. I think it's the last,
I loved it.
the big aeroplane you flew, or the fast aeroplane. What would you like to say about its, let's say, the guns? It had 8 very powerful guns.
Originally 8, then later on 2 Cs came with 4 cannons.
Okay. Initial one had 8.
First we really have.
What was the bore, uncle? Were they 0.33 or were they
I think say
0.3 and 0.5?
I don't remember which point that.
0.5 inch.
I think they were six each side. No,
4 each side.
4 each side.
4 on each. And they were all in the wings.
All the inside.
All in the wings side. And how much ammunition did you carry per
Well,
gun? Like,
I never counted ammunition, but anyway, we signed the
but your any particular experience, some incident, would you like to highlight, which stays in your mind, stayed in your mind so long that you can't forget it, something like that?
hurricane.
Like sometimes you come across an emergency situation, like for instance your days on the hurricane, the Burma front. Would you like to tell us something about that?
Well, Hurricane was a very tough aircraft, could land. We didn't have any, first landing, when I took the advanced party of 6 Squadron to Cox's Bazar originally. And then that's the time when Mir Singh flew night flight from Calcutta to Delhi.
I see.
That became very famous that time.
Hurricane.
And the Hurricane.
Hurricane, you did regular night flying, uncle?
No, we did night flying in Hurricane, but in
The later version.
and Oryx.
Okay.
Certainly we did night flying. But you see, thing is, we couldn't sort of, when Mir Singh took that trip, he mentioned, it came out very famous. He was attending a meeting in, AOC's meeting in
Delhi.
In Delhi.
Haan,
So they all went there. I have a picture of everybody there. Uncle Surjit is there, Mir Singh is there, and Arjun is there, and everything and all that, And he came there. So I asked him, sir, why do you take it? Why early in the morning, get there in time? He said, I'm not taking a risk. I went up and I flew up and I could see the light. After a little while, I could see Allahabad light. I landed there for refueling. Then I landed there, went up to the height, and then went up to see Delhi lights.
Could see Delhi lights. Navigation over.
No problem. Anyway, everything.
And uncle, the runway was lit up with goosenecks? Those kerosene things?
Kerosene champion.
There were no electric lights on the runway those days.
No electric light, no. But when we were training more, you had a generator.
I see.
There was a light there also to show the thing like that.
They just showed the runway with the lights.
Side,
But there must be something marking this edges of
goosenecks.
Goosenecks. You had goosenecks. Because I also remember till quite a few years, we had the goosenecks. Later on, of course, the electric lighting came.
All goosenecks.
You never had any electric lighting in your career? Along the runway, none?
None, not that I remember. Because most of the runways were kacha, for that matter.
Oh, the strips were all kacha.
Later on, Kohat also became, it was a kacha strip at that time.
Was it, uncle, was it kacha or was there grass on it? Like, was it paved mud or was it grass?
Grass.
Grass, mainly grass. Because paved mud will create a lot of dust. And
Mostly grass. But when actually, in my time, Madras was done.
Okay.
I remember in Ambala, when he posted.
Ambala must have been tarmac, no?
No, it was
Grass.
Grass. It was done when we were there. I remember doing orderly officer in Madras. I mean in Ambala, and you could sleep in the control tower there,
Yeah.
And you could smell this kerosene, this coal, this
tarmac being laid.
tarmac. I mean, smell tar. Very much like that. Then Madras was done when I was there. But it takes a bit of time. St. Thomas's Mount Airport, not the Tambaram or anything like that. It wasn't the Tambaram.
What is the other one, sir?
Tambaram was not, didn't exist, which is there now, I'm told. Red Hills, I remember, Red Hill Lake.
What's the name, uncle?
Red Hill Lake.
Red Head Lake.
Red Hill.
Red Hill Lake. That was the name of the airport?
Airport, and there was that lake, Catalina used to land there.
Okay.
Catalina used to come from there to Andaman Islands.
I see.
Long
Catalina are the ones that landed on water then.
And then we had a step also there. One time we landed there also. We got to Scotland, went to tried of Madras with Mason. Then went from there, we went to Trichinopoli. And Trichinopoli had a big maintenance base for the aircraft. And you would assemble it there and then fly. And Mason used to sometimes go there and just fly the aircraft.
Okay.
In that place.
Uncle, just a little insight into Air Commodore Meher Singh. He's such a well-known figure in the Indian Air Force. We who joined much later than you people, we also heard about him. We of course never got to see him. But what are your thoughts about him as an individual, as a pilot, as a human being? Well, you knew him so closely, you worked with him so often.
Not only worked with him, but then after he left the Air Force, which I was surprised, he resigned. And then he became more friendly, because, otherwise. And he used to fly more. I'll tell you about one incident. And he used to, I think he took that land here.
Yeah, he had a farm here, very big farm had. And he had those metal strips laid out here to land on them.
Okay. And then he didn't tell me about that, but anyway, he used to come there. And then he had a Bonanza that time flying. And he said, come with me, because I had the agency of International Harvester Sectors. I left the Air Force.
Okay.
And I didn't want to leave the Air Force, and Uncle Sudhit was very keen that I should leave and carry on, because I had a good chance to go up, And he said, no, I left the Air Force because your father died, and I left the Air Force, and now you come back. Anyway, whatever, just a long story, that's it. Anyway, I left the Air Force, and he came to me to go to Port, then I said, what to do? Then we bought another agency, company. And we had International Harvester Sectors, Burma Shell, and things like that, agencies and all. So that's the reason I went from there to Kathmandu the first time.
Oh, your first aeroplane to land in Kathmandu?
Kathmandu, from there. Anyway, it was...
you were not in the Air Force, Uncle, when you did that Kathmandu?
No, I was very...
Way after that?
It was 49, Kinney was a little baby.
Okay. Uncle, I would ask you a very personal question. You have mentioned that when you joined the Air Force, it was your grandfather, late Sundar Singh Majithia. And later on, it seems you were a lot under the influence of your uncle, again Coordinator D.S. Majithia, who was the minister at one time. And it appears you were not under the influence of your father much while you were in the Air Force or joining the Air Force or leaving the Air Force.
I lost my father when I was in the Air Force.
When you were very young?
No, I was in cohort. And I remember he was an amazing man, really. And he went to attend a wedding in Jalandhar of one of the relations. He didn't want to go. And my grandmother told me he used to go there, BBG, I don't want to go, and come back. And then, anyway, he went. And then I had a cup of tea or something like that. And after that, something happened. Anyway.
Because, why I asked you, because when you joined, you said it was your grandfather, Sundar Singh Majithia, who gave you the permission. That why the cavalry, why not the Air Force?
Yeah, he said because your uncle is already there.
Uncle is already there. That's why I asked you this
He
question.
went for his training to Habania.
Okay.
You probably know Habania in Iraq.
Habania is in Iraq. I've been there.
Is it? Yeah. He was with big Royal Air Force Station.
Yes, very big base. Very, very big base.
He was trained there.
Uncle Sujit was trained there?
Air Force training.
Okay.
Before that, he used to have pilot license, so civil pilot. But he used to fly with...
He relatively, was he same seniority as Meher Singh and Mukherjee, or was he...
I think
what do you think, if you recollect? Had he continued, you think he would have had a chance of becoming the chief? Because he left very early for his own personal reasons or whatever it was.
My father died, he left.
So he had to leave.
So I also, she said, I left the Air Force, I left it because. But anyway, whatever was happened, one can't sort of go back on it now, the whole thing, can't bend that. But question is, it's quite a different life,
Quite a different, totally different.
Luckily, I had the aircraft to fly. I had, when I was in Madras, I took a civil pilot license also.
Oh, I see.
The girls, wanted to come and say, what sort of people are you? You can't take us for a trip or something. Like, I can't take you as your Air Force, you can't try.
Maybe you need a license.
So I went to this instructor. Colonel Bisco, very nice chap, So I asked him, can will you give me a trip? I want to apply for a pilot's license. What for? He said, well, everybody wanted him to take up. And so he took me up for a trip and things like that. And he
Cleared you.
cleared. And he got the license in about a fortnight.
That was all.
No, he gave the license later on.
And that license, uncle, you had to validate it every year?
Every year.
Every year.
But then I didn't have to do it.
Civil
I was
aviation.
there, I didn't bother. But when I left the Air Force, I went to the DGCA and Group Captain Bussell, remember?
Yes, you remember.
He became the DGCA.
Okay. So he remembered you.
So I walked up to him, said, here's my license.
Please renew it.
I have flown Atlanta, which is a heavy aircraft, heavier than in the Dakota for that matter, Anyway, so he said, license valid for so many pounds of aircraft or something like that, So I had to fly from Lytton Beach also. Same.
Okay.
And then I've never had any problem with that. I send it for renewal. But I have had my medical every year.
Oh, you had to do that?
Medical I have to do. I do have more satisfaction, nothing else. That is that time there. But Mayor Singh, as you asked a question about Mayor Singh, was I asked him why you left the Air Force, And he used to come to Siddharnagar quite often. And sorry I'm telling you like that, but I was in Muzaffarpur that time. He landed there. And he said, come, I want to go to Calcutta, I'll take you with me. I went, okay, so I went with him to Calcutta. And he selected some equipment for his farm here. And I took him to my international harvest detectors. There was a Voltage used to have that agency. And we had that. And that is the thing, but see, when I came back, they said, you fly. So I got into the park. That dirty airplane didn't have any blind flying instruments.
I see.
I only done
one or two basic instruments. Turn and slip indicator.
I was flying in July. I want to come back from a birthday to Muzaffarpur with Johnny. And I was flying and he was next to me and he put a tata on and he went to sleep. And I was going flying in 9,000 feet or something like that, and I had to avoid the clouds going here and there and everything. He said, why don't you go through that? Like I said, I mean, why go the other way?
Why go into the clouds?
He said, no, a couple of bumps you get out of it. So I put it into a couple of bumps, and it wasn't a couple of bumps, it went on. And then, of course, he said, let me take over. So he asked for flying, and he went to the same sort of thing at 6,000 feet. And we came out in Girdi area, which is hilly, like that, I could still remember looking at the wing, it was doing this, the thing on that. And then he started flying, and but he got out of it, he threw it back and fly the son of a bitch. So I flew it to Muzaffarpur and landed there. And he wrote there on that thing, don't fly the son of a bitch in the clouds. And same aircraft, he was eventually, a few months later,
died.
He got killed.
Same aeroplane or same type?
Same aircraft.
Same aeroplane?
It belonged to escorts, I think.
Okay.
And
uncle, was it a similar incident, went into cloud?
Same aircraft.
No, but went into cloud or otherwise?
Who he did?
Went into cloud and got disorientated?
I don't know what happened.
Don't know.
I don't know.
I remember hearing about his death. I was in the Air Force at that time when he died. He was with Maharaja Patiala, if I'm not mistaken.
He flew with Patiala in the Dakota to Delhi. And then he went back somehow or the other because, the escorts are making a tunnel in Kashmir.
Okay.
Tunnel, something or the other.
Banihal tunnel must be.
I don't know. They had a big contract. And this Hari Nanda's elder brother was sitting with him with two Germans and nursing. Coming back, he flew over Patiala, I'm told. They said, this is looking at everything okay and all. Then he came to Delhi and they said, why don't you refuel? He never refueled. If he had refueled there in Srinagar or somewhere else, this would have never happened.
Where exactly did he crash?
Just out of Delhi, going up to that road goes to...
Delhi those days was Palam or was it Safdarjung?
No, Palam, that road goes to Ambala.
GT road.
That dirty patch, that what these whole birds sit there and everything like that.
Yes.
That area, somewhere there. I kept that, I think I've still got the map there marked that Silvery had happened. He was supposed to, I think month of March, which was. And he was supposed to come to us here. We are shooting in Jolasal.
Okay.
And he was coming to meet us,
be
with us here in Jolasal for a few days. Uncle Sujit was with us also.
Very sad.
And then we heard this news. I was shocked, really, the whole thing. And I don't know, I've not still got over it. I went to see his mother, and she was wearing his kara. Kanda hi reh gaya mere paas. I still remember.
So, Uncle, with that, we'll end this interview, and hopefully, we'll have the third session.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Uncle. Thank you so much.
You are so good.